This episode is sponsored by the Herzog Foundation. This is Conversation Balloons, a podcast of interviews with experts and friends about all things generational. I'm your host, Leah Farish. Bringing back to you today our guest, Dr. Kerry Byrne, who founded thelongdistancegrandparent.com, an online community of those who are trying to maintain connection with grandchildren over 200 miles away, or in any situation where you can't be with your grandkids in person. Thank you for coming back to us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We're going to talk today. Last episode that I talked to Dr. Byrne, we talked about connecting with grandchildren under 10, and we'll put that link below to this episode. And today we're going to focus on kids over 10. And there's empirical research that Dr. Byrne has studied about how to effectively connect with these kids. And would you please share with us the difference, the specific challenge of relating to teenagers, especially tweens and teenagers, when you're at a distance?
Yeah, so a lot of grandparents notice this around the kind of like 10-year-old, 11-year-old mark, sometimes 12, that they start to feel a little bit panicked because their grandchildren aren't as interested in coming to the FaceTime chats and are out doing all different kinds of things with their friends. And I think probably from a child development perspective, the most important thing to realize is that that's what they're supposed to be doing, right? Like they are supposed to be looking for independence, searching for friendships, different people, figuring out who they are. And grandparents, like at this particular stage of their development, they still need you. They really need you, in fact, probably more. And I would say more and more now for teenagers who are, dealing with things that none of us had to deal with growing up when it comes to, social media, the kind of video games that people are on, this like non-social types of behavior. And so for teenagers, they, I would say that you switch really to focusing on letters. And I know that it can feel very one way because it is. But I want you to start to think about a habit that you get into about writing letters to your grandchildren who are teenagers. And so you're going to start the letter off with the same kind of thing, like, my dearest Finn or something lovely, so that they're always going to remember that. And this is where you can share family stories in little letters. I'm not saying write 10 pages. I'm talking about 1 page, possibly print, because a lot of kids have a hard time reading cursive. But sharing things like family stories, especially any stories of adversity, like Robin Fivish, who's a family stories researcher, talks about how even when teenagers do not appear to be listening or absorbing, they are. And they draw on those stories. And so even if they're, so I think it's important to write them down in letters for your grandchildren. And you can be sure that most teenagers are facing some level of adversity right now, whether it is they're struggling in a friendship, struggling with something at school. If they're older teenagers, they're making all kinds of decisions. And so drawing on your own family history in a way that, share letters with kind of funny stories, and don't worry if they don't mention them. I promise you they are tucking them away somewhere special and will come always. So that would be probably, I would say, my first and strongest tip, because I think that grandparents are often excited when a child does get, like a teenager gets a phone, because you think, oh, this opens up, so many more possibilities for communication, and it does. But teenagers, and I can't remember the number right now. It is a ridiculous number of notifications that they receive. And their own parents are messaging them incessantly And so, which is also part of the issue. I know that college professors are noticing this, right? That it's like the dinging and binging in the classrooms is quite frustrating. And so, yes, texting opens up quite a lovely way to communicate, but I don't know. I don't think there's anything like from a distance that you can do that's more powerful than writing letters. And so, just sit down and think about, I am going to send a letter a month.
Mhm.
Teenage grandchild, and you're going to make the envelope. You want to acknowledge also like teenagers and tweens, especially like 10, 11 year olds, especially girls, they will just sniff out anything that seems childish. And
Oh,
so you want to meet them where they're at
oh
in some,
yes.
right? Like get some writing paper that meets the moment
Mm.
that they're and write to them in that way. Like it's a shift in your relationship because you have quite a powerful role in being able to recognize that I see you and I see how you're changing, and teenagers really need to hear this.
Mhm.
That helpful, Leah? Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but
No,
as a
I love every bit of it, and I think it can be really valuable if we don't get to spend really just we just get to spend hours or no time in person with these children. That if we can connect with some other kids in our milieu who are that age,
yes.
maybe teach Sunday school to 8-year-olds if you got 8-year-olds or 15-year-olds, or have the neighbor family over and notice how the teenagers act. Try to interact with them and find out what they're interested in, and then you can talk to your tween or teenager and say, I have this neighbor who's your age, and she's not making friends at school at all. They're new to town. And what would you recommend that she do?
Mhm.
Or, what's your advice if a kid is, just feeling stressed with too much going on at school? I just don't know what kids do these days when they've got so many sports and activities. How do you handle it? You know,
Yeah, and teenagers love, as they often like to be asked what they think about things, and so it's, in so many ways, what I shared in the first segment of this around knowing what they're interested in, this applies to all ages. And so, if you have a granddaughter, for example, who is, really into animal welfare, and you come across an article about it in your local paper, like cut it out and ask her what she thinks about it.
absolutely.
There are, teenagers care about a lot of things and are interested in a lot of things, and it might be sports. So if you know that they are, like crazy about baseball, as an example, then you connect with them around that and ask them questions about it. I think that one of the most amazing things that you can do as a grandparent to a teenager is to interview them. They will likely in school have been asked to interview their grandparents, like for Grandparents' Day or whatever that might be. But I like to share with grandparents to flip the script on that one and frame it up as a family project that you're doing. And so you can be a grandma grandpa team or do it on your own if you're a grandpa or a nana. And that you're doing a family interview project, and so would you like meet me at this time, and we'll you're not going to sit there for an hour with them. You can do it over time. Ask them, would you prefer that I text you these questions for you to answer?
Mhm.
And you're going to ask them some interesting questions about themselves, learn so much about them, and then put that together for them. And also, you're getting all this information about them. So you will know who their favorite singer is, right? What's the show that they would watch if they could only watch like one show
Mhm.
of the year? If they could only eat one food for the rest of their life on a desert island, what is it?
Mhm.
Then when they come to visit, you're going to make sure you have that food there. There are just some really interesting things. So as much as it's easier to be interested in some of the things that little kids are interested in. Everyone learns all kinds of things about dinosaurs and cars and like fairies and Walt Disney princesses.
Mhm.
And then kids get into like Minecraft or video games, and it is. it is harder to be interested in some of those things. You don't have to know about all of those things to be in conversation and ask questions about those things.
Yeah. I like being able to not ask, especially if it's like in a chat situation, a synchronous kind of situation, to not have to put them on the spot with the direct questions, but sometimes just say, I wonder what, or, I've heard Gen Z um, on the news, it said Gen Z is interested in this or more like that. And I'm wondering if that's really true for everybody, or I'm curious about what it's like for you during the summer when you're off from school. Just make a statement and let them jump into whatever part of that they want, because they can sometimes feel kind of probed, if we have too many questions. Although I love that questionnaire or interview format of kind of sneakily getting in there with with the
Yeah,
questions.
it is. And it's also, though, because you're going to do it with everyone, you're going to interview their parents, you're going to take it on as a project. And what better gift to give to your family than a snapshot of where everybody is in their life right now? And you can ask it in interesting ways, use kind of would you rather questions, give them some multiple choice questions. And when it's in the context of an interview, you're not asking them like deeply personal questions. You're
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
trying to get to know them. And I think that like teenagers are the same though, in terms of like if the question's too broad, um, they have a more difficult time responding. Not all, but some teenagers for sure. And so to say something, like about like if you're going to ask them about their day, it's like, did anyone make you laugh today? Being really specific,
Mhm.
I think also sending, and I do this with my niece, I'll send her, and this is my 15-year-old niece, I'll send her photos of us when she was little and just kind of recap what was going on. Or like, this was so fun, the day we tried classes. And
Yeah,
like, you get like a heart back. If they heart it, like that's a response.
absolutely.
That's
I'll
a
take
full
an emoji any day.
That's a full-fledged answer. And so, one of the things for teenagers, it's like, if you just show up after not seeing them for a long time and you have all these questions, and of course it feels like an interrogation. But if in the spaces between, you're sending a couple letters, you're sending some cards, you're sending, your mom told me that you did X and I'm so proud of you. That was really hard. Just
Mhm.
little snippets. That kind of peppers the relationship in between seeing one another. And it's also does not position you as like the grandparent that just shows up every 2 months and you have dinner together and like you ask awkward questions. Like you want them to know that you're thinking of them all the time. And there's a number of different ways that you can do that that don't require them. Mail being one of them. Even a text like, "Hey, no need to respond. I know you're busy. You've got a lot going on. I just wanted to say good luck with whatever it is." Like, right? Like it's these little things, and then it's also releasing expectations and again meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, you talk about being low maintenance, and I think that's great for any kind of a friendship or relationship, not coming across as needy and weepy and, "Oh, I've just been missing you so much, and why don't we ever get to talk?" And, that's just a drag for a teenager. It feels like demands.
We want to take a moment to thank the Herzog Foundation and its growing media network, home to the Conversation Balloons podcast and other incredible faith-focused shows. The foundation is dedicated to strengthening Christian education, helping families, teachers, and entire school communities pass on faith and wisdom from one generation to the next. They do this through free training events, support for new and growing schools, and a media network. Learn more about how the Herzog Foundation is investing in the next generation at herzogfoundation.com.
Well, and you also feel badly. And as a teenager, the one thing that you don't need is to feel worse about yourself than you feel in that moment. And like be sensitive to that, right? Like if you have teenage grandchildren, like let's talk about self-esteem issues that are going on for them. This is what I mean by, being the grand encouragement officer, the GEO. You want to turn the channel to you. It's positive, it's loving, it is like your face is lighting up when you see them. They actually really need that. So it's not, you don't want to focus on like the things like, oh gosh, like you never call me or you never this. And I'm not saying that like it sucks when they don't. Like, let's be honest, right? Like that doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great if you're always the one initiating the contact. You're like, do they care? Are they interested in this? Like, what is it? Like the only way that you'll know is if you just keep doing it.
Yes.
You keep those touch points. And when I say low maintenance, it's really because we sometimes picture like these big, moments that we're going to have with family. And it's like the memories and the relationships. And if you think about any other relationship in your life, it's made in like moments that accumulate over time. And it's not like, yes, there's the big surprise moment or the grand gesture. You go on a trip together, you do these things, but it's very likely that your grandchild will one day say, they always sent me a card on my birthday,
Mm.
right? Told me like, 10 things that they loved about me, 11 things that they loved about me, then 12 things. And like, I am 20 and now there's 20 things that they love about me. Like that's what we want for children. It's what I want for like anyone who's listening to this,
Mhm.
be remembered as the person who did that and to be pouring into your grandchildren in that way. And it's not like, this is not hokey pokey stuff. Like this is really based on research around, how to nurture strong relationships between generations.
Yeah, you've referred to a study by Dr. Robin Fivish at Emory, who children who hear and revisit family stories develop stronger self esteem, resilience, and a deeper sense of belonging. And elsewhere, that kids with close grandparent bonds are less depressed, they're kinder, they're more generous, and less ageist, which we talked about a little bit last time, the ageism. But those things are things that tweens and teenagers really need to develop kindness, to develop their self-esteem, and fight depression. And so this is a real benefit to the kids, and for parents who are reluctant to press the relationship or are too busy. These are things that we can share with them to motivate them to help facilitate this relationship. And I want to close with any comments you have, any wisdom you have on when there is some level of estrangement between the grandparent and the parent, where you're not getting loads of um, facilitation between the generations.
Yeah, where you look at how kids score and teenagers, adolescents score on scales of depression when they have positive, high quality relationships with their grandparents, they score lower on these. I mean, it's actually pretty incredible. And even the one about pro-social behaviors, it was by Dr. Jorgensen. It was a longitudinal study. And when they have high quality relationships with the grandparent, kinder, more generous, and these are the things that parents want. So we're kind of like, we're all on the same team here. We are all trying to, be part of making sure that kids grow up with this confidence, with self-esteem, and grandparents have a, really like they're like a very important vitamin to give your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll change channels here now to the, really heartbreaking situation around estrangement. And I hear from too many grandparents in this situation where they have been experiencing some level of limited contact. Sometimes it is due to a very strange relationship with a daughter-in-law. Um, and I don't have expertise in this area that rivals anyone else's. And so I don't really provide advice. I offer up other people's resources
Mm-hmm.
when this because what I want is for grandparents to every situation when it comes to like estrangement, strained relationship, tricky relationship, whatever you call it, they're so individual. There's always like this, like set of factors that are in play. Sometimes it's the daughter-in-law, sometimes it's you, it's the grandparent has like pushed at the wrong time. that said something early on in the relationship, to a daughter-in-law when she was a new mother, and you've got to like walk back and repair that.
Or there's a divorce or something that really makes the whole interaction very, questionable and very fraught.
Yeah, so I would say the only piece of advice that I would give is to seek out professional help as soon as possible, and to make sure that that person is well versed in estrangement, in family systems therapy, that they have a good level of experience in this area, just to get the lay of the land for your particular situation. Because what happens is that there can be this buildup over time, and then this like volcanic kind of thing happens,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very hard to come back when that volcano erupts. And so, I know you've had Dr. Coleman as a guest, and he's definitely, one of the leading experts in this area. I really, Dr. Carl Pilmer's work, I recommend that a lot to grandparents, especially if you are in this period of time where things like feel tricky, they feel strained.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he really does give a good overview and like entire chapter on how people reconciled,
Oh,
how it
yeah.
came to. So, that would be, I would say, my number one piece of advice is to seek out that professional help. And if you feel like you might have a strain in the relationship, then you probably do. And there's just too much at stake. But one other thing that I will say is that, and I've worked with some incredible grandparents in various levels of estrangement, just through the nature of the work that I'm doing. And I am always amazed at the level of self awareness. And, if you were to follow a lot of people who are talking about, adult children who have walked away from contact with their parents, they would describe grandparents who are, and parents who are like not willing to self-reflect, not willing to. I just feel that I see the other side of that. I see grandparents who are like, actually, I'm really emotionally like not intelligent. I need some help. I'm immature emotionally, and I don't know. I just have a really strong belief that baby boomer grandparents in particular will meet this moment. Things have changed. Dr. Coleman always kind of outlines how things have changed. It's like individualistic pursuit of happiness, all of the things. But I have a lot of belief in grandparents that they will be able to like meet this moment, adapt, and make sure that they are able to have relationships with the parents and their grandchildren.
Mm, I love that note. I want to add something that I haven't seen and that's important in a lot of families. If this isn't a fraught subject, to share your faith tradition with your grandkids is a wonderful thing. There are so many ways to do that, to pray with them, to pray for them, telling them you're praying for them, to share a scripture that's encouraging, to ask them how church is going, to read something together, a book or a devotional or something like that, and tell them stories of how you came to faith or how a prayer was answered in your life. That kind of thing can be uh, just, I think, of eternal significance. And God, if you believe in Him, you're believing in something that's everywhere and that's pure love and something that you can reinforce if it's a faith that you have that you can share. And I think that anything that we is in our environment that we can pour into their environment is a wonderful thing. Whether it's talking about the weather or how your peach tree is developing this spring, or reporting on, I've signed up to be a chaplain at the hospital, and I'm learning so much about what people are like when they don't feel good. And just to always present yourself as a learner, not just a teacher but a learner and an explorer and discoverer. I think that is is good for them as young people to see this is the kind of old person I would like to be someday.
Yeah, and it's just setting a great example, and it's also giving you interesting things to talk about. And I will say that I know a lot of grandparents who have, busy, vivacious lives, and they still miss their grandchildren desperately. And so both of those things can be true. I think that sometimes parents think or kids think like, oh, grandma doesn't have enough going on. It's like grandma's on 4 committees, the treasurer of this,
Yeah.
very involved in church or community, whatever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
and still wants to have a relationship with family. And
There's nothing like it.
yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your expertise again with us, and let everyone know how to contact you if they want to be involved further with your work.
You can just go to my website, thelongdistancegrandparent.com. If you just Google my name and grandparenting, it'll come up. And one of the kind of first things in Google, and you will find me. Once you're on my website, then you are on your way to the races in terms of finding out what the long distance grandparent's all about, the different products and services that I offer, and also just on Instagram, I'm always sharing different things about how to stay connected to your grandchildren of all ages, and I'd love to see you there and follow along.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Byrne. Subscribe and review Conversation Balloons on your favorite podcast platform. Find me at leahfarish.com and on Instagram at LEAHFARISH. This episode is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.